Bibliosophie.
Greetings, I'm sat here enjoying the last bits of sunshine for the day and basking in it. I think I look quite cute today. However, I feel terrible. I feel very, very tired and weak. I just do not have enough blood cells. Usually I'm very resilient at growing those buggers back, but we're being a bit more recalcitrant this time around. So it goes. It's been a rough couple of days, so rough that I haven't even opened my tiny Advent books from today nor yesterday. I will maybe this evening. And yeah, so even though I think I look quite nice, I want to document the fact that I don't feel great, because that's also part of my life. I'm going to try to eat this pudding and yeah, just recover from having walked not quite a kilometer. Soup. Hello again. I am very happy to report that I feel exponentially better. I went back to the clinic this morning to get another blood test, and I have 27 times more white blood cells than I did on Monday afternoon, not quite 48 hours ago. And boy, can I feel it. I'm still gonna take it easy, but yeah, I'm starting to feel just so much better, which is wonderful. I have been doing some reading also again. I finally opened last night the tiny books of Monday and Tuesday. Monday's was Emily Brontë. This is a series of poems that I've not yet gotten to. And yesterday's was Leonora Carrington. The titles of this felt very pointed and triggered at me last night. The night is darkening round me and the skeleton's holiday. So I had a bit of a chuckle when I finally opened these. It felt appropriate to how I was feeling for the past couple of days. As I think I just said, I have not yet gotten to these, but I plan to do so. I did read the Carrington last night and had a great time doing so. I have actually read all of these stories before. 2 years ago, I guess, I read the complete short stories of Carrington. If you don't know, I'm a big Leonora Carrington fan. Specifically, I really like The Hearing Trumpet, her novel. Weird, wonderful novel. And I figured rightly that I could revisit some of these. Some in this collection, there's quite a few because they're actually quite short. So there's 7 in this. A few of them I remembered very distinctly. A few of them I really did not, including the first of the collection, White Rabbits, which I had just a wonderful time reading. And it kind of really got me going back into reading. It's kind of a perfect short story as far as I'm concerned. Very weird and kind of a little dark, a little funny, slightly disgusting, slightly off-putting, and very short. The thing to know about these volumes is that they're all about 50-60 pages, but the font size changes depending on the volume to keep them within those boundaries. And this one is on the bigger end of the font size. So White Rabbits is 6.5 quite short pages. And I just loved it. It just is this tiny morsel of an oddity that I highly recommend you check out specifically. It is available online. I'll check again to make sure, but I'm almost certain it is, because there is a pretty extensive preview of the complete short stories of Carrington available via Google. And I believe White Rabbits is one of the stories that is part of that preview. So I recommend you read it and let me know if you too are delighted by it, as I was. I read this morning, finally, the Oscar Wilde that I opened last week, Lord Arthur Savile's Crime. I can never remember the title. I was also delighted by this. I read this while waiting for my blood results. This is a comedic take on fate and one man's reaction to his to the fate that has been announced to him, and how that kind of messes up his life and his thought process. It's very funny and a bit dark in ways. It has a lot of Wildisms, a lot of kind of witticisms and citations that could very much be taken out and put on little banners. And I had a great time with it. I am currently also reading the Du Maurier that I opened last week, and I'm having a great time with it as well. So this is also this was one long short story in the volume, and this is also another one long short story. The font of this one is considerably smaller, and I'll probably finish it as I have my lunch. Those are the updates. Thrilled to announce that because I'm no longer feeling on the verge of collapse constantly, I'm now just vaguely anxious in every way, trademark, because I can't possibly just be chill. No. My body has registered new energy levels as probably panic mode. So I'm gonna try to do some house chores that are making me anxious and see if I can just tick that off and think of myself as a productive success.
Is this going to taste like Swiss?
All right, what'd you get?
A shrimpy.
It's a giant shrimp made of marzipan.
Delve into it despite the unknowable.
I tried to record my favorites of 2024 video earlier today, and I just could not. I got very frustrated with myself, and I was just sort of staring blankly at myself on my phone. So that will be for later. Maybe later today I'll have more courage to do it. I took a long walk with a friend yesterday evening, and that was wonderful. That was just delightful, because she's great, and so it was good to see her and talk to her. It was also really good to actually get some physical exercise a little bit. I think my body needed to move now that it could, and so that made my anxiety a lot better. The twofer. I bought myself a marzipan fig, by which I mean a fig, sorry for the scrunching, made of marzipan. Isn't she cute? I have no idea if it'll be tasty, but look, she's real cute. So maybe I'll eat that at some point. I read last night the Daphne du Maurier. What is this even called? The Breakthrough. It was okay. It's a story. So this is one long short story. It's a creepy scientist doing unethical business type of story. I liked it fine. The setting, the mood was good. So it does make me want to read more du Maurier because the writing is atmospheric and engaging, but it was sort of sans plus. It was fine. I'm taking a bath for a comforting escape from real life for a few minutes. I am frustrated and tired from the work and chores I have done today, a little paralyzed as to what next to accomplish, a little unwilling to accomplish anything more, and kind of cold. So I am just escaping in my little pond like a duck.
Writer, March in particular.
Spectaculaire, mon iPhone.
Pas d'exister, hein. the Tiny's front, things I've read. Javier Marías. There are 5 very short biographical, essays in this collection, which was quite delightful. I really like this. They're all coming from written lives, and there's a very short biography of Emily Brontë, of Madame du Deffand, who gives the title to the little collection, Nabokov, Gina Barnes, and Oscar Wilde. And I don't know how beautifully, perfectly factual they are. I'm not sure, but they're very irreverent, and I found this very fun. I'm actually going to send it to a friend of mine, annotated. I am in the process today of reading Carson McCullers. I have read The Haunted Boy. There are 2 other stories, 3 totals in this collection. I quite liked The Haunted Boy. It was, well, very haunted, let me tell you. So I will probably finish this little volume today, maybe right after I'm done talking to you. A lot of eerie, uncomfortable energy, very, very American. It felt like some deep Americana. There is a pie, and there might even be a character who says something like G, but I liked it. I did finish this morning Gertrude Stein, Food. I mean, this is Gertrude Stein. There was only a couple of little bits that I actually got a lot of pleasure out of. This is, you know, just a collection of words, basically. What was it? Salad? Yes, salad. It is a winning cake. That was my favorite section. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's also irreverent, maybe. I can't quite get into a lot of Gertrude Stein's writing, quite honestly, and this one isn't, I think, the volume to get you into her writing. I did, however, heartily enjoy reading the Storygraph reviews of this volume, because there are a lot of very negative reviews on it, and one of them said I felt like I was having a stroke, which, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the vibe. I read Elizabeth Gaskell, whom I have never read before. I've picked a lot of these books as kind of forced entryways into authors that I've always heard about and been vaguely curious about. So this was kind of an introduction for me. I liked these fine. I think if you like short stories, if you like Victorian short stories and kind of especially Gothic stories, you would like The Old Nurse's Story, which is the first of the 2 stories. It is very much a Victorian ghosty story. Atmospheric, well done. I got not that much out of it, but that's more of a me problem, not really an it problem. I think it's well constructed. The second story also is kind of an imagining of somebody who meets a bunch of fairy tale type creatures, which was intriguing, actually. I think it doesn't work as well as The Old Nurse's Story, but I was actually somewhat intrigued by it. And yesterday I did finally read the Emily Brontë volume that I unpacked several days ago. I have read a couple of her poems before, but not very much. I didn't really latch on to these tremendously. They're, again, actually very atmospheric. I think this would be a really good winter read. There's a lot of winter imagery, and it's very melancholy, sometimes morbid, not exclusively, but I think this is a really good winter read. Some of the poems work better than others for me. I think I did it a disservice by reading it mostly all in one go. I think it's too much of the same. And there's a lot of iambic tetrameter in these poems. They're not exclusively in iambic tetrameter, but there's a lot of it. And yeah, I felt a little bit, after a while, lulled by it. I really liked a very, very short story that is poem that is not as regular, actually, so maybe that's partially why. I might be broken. Maybe I read too much modern and contemporary poetry. I do tend to actually really like traditional poetic forms. I think I have an easier time with very traditional poetic rhythms when it's not English. I think the already very, very stressed and rhythmic nature of English makes me a little bit more easily bored with highly structured rhythmic poetry. But that said, there are many, many exceptions to that. So I can dig it, but I wonder if I'm a little unfair just by virtue of disuse. I don't just wonder. I know that I'm somewhat unfair in my judgment of these because of my own kind of proclivities. Anyway, the poem that I really liked is only a stanza of 4 lines. Woods, you need not frown on me, spectral trees that so dolefully shake your heads in the dreary sky. You need not mock me, or you need not mock so bitterly. It's just a lovely, short poem, I think. So that's the Advent tiny book calendar experiment continues. I want to finish Anne Boyer, A Handbook of Disappointed Fate, before the end of the year. I have it as my personal goal to finish this, and I'm quite close to done, actually. This morning I was reading quite a bit of it. So I've really enjoyed these essays. I talked about this book briefly in a previous vlog. I want to read more Anne Boyer anyway. Actually, I already have another volume in mind that I'm going to request from the library. So I've been enjoying these, not all of them equally, but this is a great odd collection of very poetic stories. I finished the Empusium at the beginning of the week. I never said this, but I ended up really enjoying it. Spoiler alert, it made my favorite books of 2024 list, which went up today, so it's not actually a spoiler. But it came together in a way that I found very interesting, it made me almost gleeful in the end, because you do have to kind of slog through some parts, in my opinion, and then the way that it came together made me quite happy. The feminist revenge of it all made me quite happy. And I want to mention briefly 2 books from Bookmail, which I've not read, but which I'm really looking forward to reading, presumably in the new year. They're ARC's Stag Dance by Tori Peters. I'm so excited to get this because I really liked Detransition Baby, and I didn't even know that Peters was coming out with a new book, but this comes out on March 11th, 2025, and it is by Random House. So I'm really excited to get to this soon, ideally. And Natasha Brown, Universality, I'm also really looking forward to. I also didn't know that Brown was coming out with a new book, but I really liked Assembly a couple of years ago, so I think this will probably treat me well. This is also from Random House, and this comes out March 4th, so a couple of March Random House offerings that I'd like to get to probably in January. Anything else? No, that's it. I don't want to talk anymore. Catherine and Porter.
Coucou maman. Salut coucou.
C'est magnifique.
He was authentic.
Ah, Elie Bouban.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Really Mubarak, yes.
No.
He's very charming looking.
I'm still not in the hospital for my next chemo, so just waiting around and eating good food. We're actually invited to a neighbor's Christmas meal, and I think it's the first time I'm celebrating American Christmas, so that's exciting. This will be a fun and exotic time for me and mine. Speaking of Christmas adjacent things, this is the full rundown of the Tiny Advent books. I have read almost all of them. As we know, I DNF'd this guy early on, and I have not yet read 2 of the latter offerings. I have not yet read Lem, but I would like to, and Catherine Ann Porter, which was yesterday's offering. So these 2 are the 2 that I have fully not read yet, but I think I will probably before the end of the year. Yesterday I read the collection of Christina Rossetti that I opened, I guess, 2 days ago. I've read a fair amount of her poetry before. It was nice to read for the first time and reread some of her things. I did finally end up reading the excerpts of Dante, and I think that's everything that I had not read yet. I finished Carson McCullers, Things Are Falling Down Around Me. I quite liked all 3 of these stories, actually. Very moody, very kind of depressing, which, you know, it's Carson McCullers. It's not utterly shocking. So mostly these have been, you know, a bit up and down, of course, but a success, I think. I'm quite happy I did this funny little project. I didn't actually have to read all of the books that I opened. It was mostly just for the joy of opening things, but I'm glad I read almost all of them. So yeah, just 2 more remaining.
Tell us, what is the name of this?
So this is Christmas pudding.
I'm packing to go to hospital. Because I'm a very obstinate person, I don't want to post this vlog if I don't have at least one clip of me admitting that I feel like a miserable person right now. I feel emotionally miserable, and I don't feel brave. And I feel very, very, very guilty for not being a good enough patient today. And so I am back in the hospital indeed, back on the drip. It was a difficult start to this day, which was the case last time. They're getting more and more difficult, if we're gonna be honest. I dread going to the hospital more increasingly, even though I like the people here. I have a good relationship with the nurses. At this point, I'm starting to know people very well, but it just is kind of increasingly crushing. I had anticipated that December would be difficult, and it was. I had a bad time, but I also had many nice times. So yeah, I'm currently still in a negative mood because being in the hospital isn't that much fun. I'm sure nobody has ever told you that. Anyway, it is almost the end of December, and I have finished the last remaining 2 books of my advent calendar. Unfortunately, most of them were duds. I think my setting and my mind space were not helpful, but I think I just wouldn't have adored them anyway. A couple days ago, I read half of the Stanislaw Lem collection. There are 4 in this. You might know Lem if you're a sci-fi person. He is the person who brought us the word robot, after all. He also wrote Solaris. These didn't do it for me. I think they could do it for you if you like sci-fi perhaps more than I do. In general, I do like sci-fi, but I like pensive sci-fi, and this is very plotty sci-fi. It was too plotty, and I think the fact that they are very short made it worse. So they were sort of these adventure tales, and I got tired of them. Admittedly, I was also in a very, very bad mood when I was reading them, so perhaps I just couldn't get into them, but I don't know. And this morning, I read the Cracked, Looking Glass by Catherine Ann Porter, and this was also not something that worked for me. This is a novella, short novella, which follows a young Irish woman who has come to live in the United States and is living with her husband, an American man. It's very much an internal monologue of her life her concerns. She's very chatty, very outgoing, and he is a lot more reserved. So there's some disaffection in her marriage and in her situation in life. This should be the premise of something that I would adore. Internal monologue of a woman? Sign me up. She's kind of unhappy in her life? Even better. But I found her boring and annoying, mostly annoying. There's a lot of casual racism and xenophobia also, which kind of didn't help seal the lot. And it's a smooth read. You could also like this. I think it would be very normal and appropriate to like this, but I just didn't enjoy spending time with our main protagonist, and therefore I didn't enjoy this book because we spend time with our main protagonist almost exclusively. Before the end of the month, my only reading goal is to finish this chunker, Essays 2 by Lydia Davis. I read Essays 1 previously, and I'm almost done with this. I have not read absolutely every page that precedes this lovely bookmark of mine, which is in fact a letter courtesy of Modern Ajama, which makes me happy to see. But most of it, there are a few essays in here that I have skipped. They all revolve around translation. Most of them have to do with translating French into English, which Davis has done a fair amount of, and specifically concerns translating Proust into English. And so these were interesting for me just personally and in my doctoral work, but also in my teaching work. There were some things that were interesting for me to just note in terms of how I talk about French and French literature to mostly American or at least Anglophonic students. I have really only one long essay left, which is on Madame Bovary, on translating Madame Bovary of Flaubert. I might read the short essay that follows it, or not, but my only goal is really, I don't know, something like 70 pages on Madame Bovary before the year's end. I wanna blank out my Storygraph currently reading list. So yes, I'm gonna close out the vlog here because this is the last thing I'm gonna post in 2024. I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your comments, your ideas. Thank you several weeks ago for the comments you left on my post asking for channels, YouTube channels to watch. Some of them were familiar to me and much beloved already. Some of them completely unfamiliar to me. So thank you so much. I never kind of did a blanket thank you for that to those of you who have been sharing kind of pastimes with me. Thank you for all your kind comments, especially in the last quarter of my let's say bizarre, charitably, 2024. I wish you all a beautiful 2025, as good as it possibly can be. And I send you gros bisous.